Friends, chess players, welcome back. Today we're returning to the channel's classic formats, namely openings in 10 minutes. So in 10 to 15 minutes, today we'll look at a very interesting opening, which is the Catalan Opening. One of the most solid and also most annoying to face among the entire roster of chess openings. Before we start, as always, if you want to support me, you know what to do. Subscribe, like, and leave a little comment. And of course, just a quick note. This series is one where I show you some ideas in 10 minutes. It's also to help you understand whether you might like the variation or not, and what the basic ideas and plans are. This is not a complete course on that opening, also because to make a full course on the Catalan, it might take us 10 hours, maybe even 20. So it's good practice to use these videos as a basic introduction to understand the position and structure a bit. Then if someone enjoys playing that opening, of course it should be studied in more depth. Sorry, let's say for the clarification, but sometimes people comment under these videos in this format saying, hey, but you're missing this variation, you're missing that other variation, it's not complete. And honestly, I don't know what to say, so that's that. Even this time someone will show up and say, hey, but you're missing that variation. Well, anyway, controversy aside. Come on, let's get started because the variation is very interesting and I have a lot to tell you. First of all, the most important thing. I want you to reach the Catalan position, which we'll look at right now, by playing in the order of knight to f3, g3, bishop to g2, and short castling. So this is the move order. I'll explain right away why, as I mentioned in another video. If we play the Catalan in the traditional way with c4, knight to f3, this is the traditional Catalan g3. At this point, black has two main moves. These two moves are bishop to b4 check and d takes c4. Both are very interesting and also quite annoying. But when we play the Catalan with this move order, that is, we castle first and only then play c4 in practice, we basically take away black's possibility to play this bishop move, b4, right? Because here bishop to b4 doesn't make sense. We play c3 and it doesn't make sense. And obviously there is no pawn to capture on c4. So first of all, the first thing, let's try to reach the Catalan with this move order. So let's play some of the standard moves because I want you to understand the goal of this position a bit. So the goal is to make use of our bishop, which is definitely much stronger than its counterpart on c8. How do we take advantage of this bishop? Naturally, we need to open up the position, so we have to get rid of the pawn on d5. How do we do all this? We do it with the move c4, so we're starting by attacking this pawn. A big difference here is that since we've already completed our castling, this move here isn't so dangerous, or rather, it doesn't bother us as much as in the other variation, because in the other variation, our king was still on a1. And so black could maybe capture the pawn and even keep it. Here we recover the pawn very quickly with moves like knight to e5 or moves like queen to c2. Honestly, my advice to you is knight to e5. Because in this position, black basically has only one decent option. The others don't really convince me. I'll show you right away why that is. Let's suppose that here black continues developing their pieces with knight to bishop d7. We recapture the pawn on c4, and this is practically the ideal position we want to reach from the Catalan. That is a position where we have a slight space advantage, which we don't mind, but above all, you see, we have this bishop, which is much stronger than its counterpart. So if black plays passively here, like plays in this way, we definitely have a much easier time executing our plans, because one day we can, not immediately of course, but one day we can also work towards this minority attack to target this pawn. And as a result, also the diagonal. Here, obviously, we can play quite calmly, honestly. We can develop our pieces without thinking too much about it. And black is in trouble. You see how black's pieces can't get into the game while we've set everything up just as we want. What does he do? Does he want to exchange pieces with us? Remember, the dynamic advantage is ours. So I'm not going to exchange them with you knight to a5. If I do exchange them, I do it on my own terms. You see, strong knight, strong bishop, and obviously we have the potential to take even more space in the center. So this is an ideal position where white basically plays on autopilot without any difficulty, and black is practically down a piece. In fact, in this position, I'll show you right away on knight e5, the only theoretically noteworthy defense for black. And here, knight to c6, which is obviously a very strange move because the knight is hanging, right? I could also just take it like this and then take the bishop. Bishop to g7. I suggest you play it a bit more calmly and capture this way. At this point, we don't capture this pawn right away because after rook to b8, honestly, we don't really like this pawn. The pawn I like more is this one, so we try to recover it with knight to a3. Again, if we manage to play knight takes c4, we have a strategically winning position. For example, I don't know, rook to b8, knight takes c4. And white is really well off here. They have everything they want. The bishop is open, the pawn structure is better. So much so that here the forcing move for black is that black has to accept the challenge and play bishop takes a3. So pay attention in this position. Black, obviously, let's say, has given up the bishop pair, and look at how weak the dark squares are. This is the theoretical position. It can be played by both sides. I can tell you that I've played it both as white and as black, I've always struggled incredibly. I've lost so many games. Obviously, I won't go into too much detail. If you want, you can study it further, but let's say that's not the goal of this video. So let's say the actual goal of the Catalan is this. So if I break open black center, obviously I'm very happy because I've activated my pieces. Let's see what happens then. If black continues to defend, so let's say black rightly says, okay, I don't want to let the center be opened. Okay, here, be careful. This is an important mistake. Never play this move, because after e takes d5, basically our bishop is now blocked by the opponent's pawn structure, and on the contrary, he has the chance to develop his pieces. So from this point of view, we need to open up the game. How do we open it? With a breakthrough push with e4, so we need to prepare this e4. So how do we prepare it? Knight here, now pay close attention again. The pawn is not hanging, because after knight to e5, black has no way to defend this pawn. Because in case of b5 here, of course, this little, apart from the fact that the pawn is hanging, there's also this little trick. No knight takes on b5. And obviously black can't capture the knight because the pawn is simply pinned. So this is basically like the previous one. Knight bd7, knight takes on c4, right? So black can't touch this pawn. So let's continue here. In reality, whether black plays a5 or plays knight to d7 or plays rook to e8, it doesn't really matter. We can continue with this very interesting variation, knight to d2. The knight moves here. For now, it blocks the bishop, but on one hand, it defends c4. On the other hand, we're officially preparing our push to e4. So knight here, perfect. We play e4, capture, recapture, and this position, as you'll see, is simply a comfortable one where we can now develop our pieces however we like. And this, I'm showing you this because it's very interesting. It's the only game I think in my life that I have won against the Stockfish engine. You know, Stockfish is practically unbeatable. It has a strength of 3,500 points. Hello, well, I won this thematic game because here, after bishop to e5, capture, the engine only says plus 1.20, which theoretically means it's a plus 1.20 that it can defend. But I can assure you that this endgame, if played well, even Stockfish loses it with black because white is in total control and domination of the position. You see how black absolutely cannot move a single piece. If he plays b6, he loses this one, and this one can't be moved. Now white plays rook here and rook to d1, completely pivoting. It's an automatic, completely dominant position, precisely because the difference in power between the two bishops is incredible. So this is the main idea we want to achieve in the Catalan. We place the pieces in this way and then we try to open up the game. Obviously here. Another main variation is also queen to c2, which works toward the same goal. We want to work on that. Queen to c2 and knight here. Look, I'll show you. Knight bd2. So we're always working with the same idea. We want to play e4, and this one is also perfectly fine. Honestly, I recommend the one with knight to c3 and knight to d2, which in my opinion is a bit simpler in terms of ease of execution. And honestly, the moves that black has to find are a bit complicated. So in my opinion, this one with knight to d2, I prefer it, but again, it's the same idea. Queen to c2, knight to d2. We want to open up the position to obviously take advantage of the greater power of our bishop. Let's look at some alternatives, shall we? Let's look at some alternatives where, for example, black immediately attacks us with the move c5. Actually, we're not afraid of these alternatives because, as we were saying, we want to take advantage of the fact that the diagonal opens up, and so we open it up easily, right? We can play c4, you see? It gets a bit messy in the center. But what we'll achieve is that our bishop, of course, will have the open line. Here, if he doesn't capture, he has a problem. I could end up in this isolated pawn position, right? And obviously, I'm already ready to blockade. The bishop is already positioned to attack the pawn, so it's not a great idea for him, so he has to try to capture. He has to try to capture c takes d4, then knight takes d4. In the end, we've achieved what we wanted, right? The position is about to open up and our bishop is better than his. So obviously this variation needs to be explored further. As I told you at the beginning, everything needs to be looked into in depth, but basically this is the main idea. And one important thing that we obviously need to look at is what this move order allows, because with this sequence of moves, as I showed you, we avoid the early d takes c4 line, and we avoid the bishop to b4 line. But of course, we do allow something, and what we allow are the variations where black is able to develop this bishop with bishop to g4 or possibly bishop to f5. I'll try to summarize them briefly. Honestly, these variations are playable for black. Naturally, though, it's not a big problem for us because in general, we will always get positions with the bishop pair. Let me show you. Let's play bishop to g2. e6, short castle, bishop e7. Here we can calmly proceed, go straight for practically taking this bishop pair. Bishop g4, bishop g6, and at this point, knight to e5. So generally play continues in this way. Knight bd7. Black accepts. Let's say we've lost the bishop pair at the cost of opening the h-file. However, this shouldn't worry you too much because the h-file, the point of contact, is on h3, which is a white square and is usually defended. So, let's say that for black, even with the h-file open, it won't be easy to attack this point on h3. On the other hand, for us, it will be very easy, as always, to work on opening up this position. And I can assure you that if we manage to open the position here, the power of this bishop on the diagonal, especially now that b7 is weak and we can put pressure on it with c4, with queen to b3. In short, if black isn't careful, there are so many problems that can't be compensated for by simply having the open h-file. So, we're quite happy to take the bishop. After all, we're Catalan players, and if we get the bishop pair, especially with the white squared bishop that black no longer has, we're usually satisfied. So, obviously, I've summarized it for you. Any one of these variations I've mentioned would deserve a much deeper analysis, but at least in this video, I've tried to give you these basic ideas. So we place our pieces like this and try to take advantage of the power of this bishop. And this applies both in the middle game and in the end game. Naturally, it will be much stronger than his pieces and he will have a lot of difficulties. So this is the idea behind the variation. Let me know in the comments if you like it, if you want us to maybe try it out in one of the instructional games I play, so we also have the chance to see it in action. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this format as well, which I haven't done in a while, so let me know if you like it and I'll see you in the next video. So